Hi, I'm Catherine Austin, and this is Living Karma Yoga. This show brings you the best of the yoga world, from physical healing practices to meditations, sacred music, travel, fashion, and more. Yoga is definitely a journey, and just like life, if you let it guide you, you'll get where you need to go. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm so excited because our first guest is one of my teachers, and I've known her actually for quite a long time in the fitness and yoga community, and it's Allison Stewart Kaplan. And for 27 years, Allison has taught group fitness and worked as a personal trainer in the Detroit area. Allison's yoga journey started with Hatha Yoga as a way to enhance her life and offer students a balanced approach to fitness and wellness. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We were just talking about our connection in the fitness world and then in the yoga world all these years that we've been in the Metro Detroit area.
Right.
I taught aerobics at a local place and you were somewhere else, and we really didn't know each other, but we knew each other, was doing this.
Right, and I was just saying to you when we were talking before this all started that I think that in the Detroit area you were actually my first experience in a yoga class. So that's, it's just because it's amazing how things come full circle,
It certainly does. And
yeah.
we were meant to be together. You've been at Karma now 2 years?
Almost three.
Oh my gosh, 3 years
Well,
already.
it'll be 3 years in September, I know.
That's great. And the reason that I brought Allison on was because of her extensive fitness background, because you're still teaching fitness and teaching a lot of yoga. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your journey first in the fitness and then what you're doing now and how that comes into your yoga.
Well, I really, my intention wasn't to be a fitness instructor or yoga teacher or anything. I sort of fell into the field, but yet I think that without recognizing it, I sort of intuitively followed my instincts into the field because I was an athlete growing up, way before it was fashionable. I always felt that I was probably born like 10 or 15 years too early because it was very uncool to be an athlete and involved in fitness. So, and then that carried through in college. I had always had sort of a conflict because I was very interested in art history. I was studying art history at the same time I was studying physical education, and so I always had this push-pull thing going on. Anyways, I ended up really pursuing, the physical aspect for my career. And so when I moved back from college, my first job was at the Jewish Community Center in West Bloomfield, and I was assisting the dance and gymnastics camp and working with young children, and we did a lot of improvisational dance and movement and that kind of thing. And from there, it just sort of spiraled into, I got involved in the health club and I started teaching. I actually, from what I understand, was the pioneer in freestyle aerobics. I think I was the first person in Detroit to teach freestyle, which went perfectly with my personality because they had the structured dance programs, and I just,
right.
I don't function like that. So it was like really great. That was great timing. And so then that really took off, the big fitness boom, which I know you were very much a part of in the early 80s.
Yep.
So I went from that, and I was there for many, many years, developed a lot of programming there with other teachers, and I eventually became the director of the health club there for about 5 years. And then I went through a divorce and found myself as a single mom for quite a while, so I decided at that point that I wanted to be home with my kids more, so I thought I would try this personal training thing. And I got my certification as a personal trainer, and I created a gym out of my home, and the rest is history. I've had, quite a successful business for the last 15 years, and that too keeps evolving, and here I am.
Well, we love that you're on staff because you bring so much of that knowledge into your classes. And talk about how in fact, the reason you're with us today is we're focusing on the core strengthening. And I even loved your notes here that you had given me, that you talked about the real core. And so talk about what that is, what you mean by the real core. And I love your mindful approach to fitness as well, as you kind of weave your yoga and fitness in together in both areas.
Well, I do now, and I have for quite a while now, like in the last 10 years when I started learning yoga. But, the fitness industry altogether has evolved.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about, holistic approach to fitness or mindfulness, or I certainly did not. Yoga obviously existed, but not so much in this community.
Right.
So as I evolved, so did my students in my classes, and it was quite a challenge to get them on board when I started talking more about the breath and the mindful approach to really starting to pay attention to what the sensations that are occurring in the body during a typical bicep curl exercise or a squat or whatever it may be. But to this day, wow, everybody's just like on it, and they just love it because the mindful approach has actually enhanced their workouts tremendously. I mean, the benefits are, I mean, that they enjoy it so much more. They're much more in touch with their bodies. They're much more in touch with, you know, what they're feeling, and now they understand, well, they get the cues now if they're working too hard or they're hurting themselves, or maybe they could possibly be doing a little bit more, or, you know, so they're more in touch with their true self, you know, their Satnam, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
you know,
now you're doing conscious fitness.
Very conscious.
Where when I was doing it, it was all plug in the headphones.
Totally.
Get it over with as fast as possible. Don't feel anything.
Be distracted.
Be distracted, and then I would overdo and hurt myself. So how beautiful that you're bringing the consciousness of your yoga practice into your clients in the fitness world. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it is, and you know, it's just so much healthier for everyone, you know, and I think that it enlightens them a lot more about their own strengths and their potential to grow in their practice, in the gym, wherever it is. And, you know, one of the things that a huge dichotomy of now and many years ago in fitness is, we talk about the real core. Well, there for many years, and still, you know, this still exists. We talk about the abs, and everybody thinks that, you know, this whole area of our body are our abs, when in truth, the abs are really just this layer of muscle on the top, you know, the known six-pack, the rectus abdominis area, and those are really our abs, so to speak, and they really play a very small role in our core. You know, you contract them and they just flex your spine forward, and that's pretty much all they do. But they look fabulous and everybody wants them.
Right, right.
So core training really, aesthetically, for a lot of people, is about seeing that. But we know now that the real core is so much more.
You know, in yoga, I'm always talking about the core as far as the third chakra. And the third chakra is the energy center at the navel center, which is your self-love, your self-worth, and your self-esteem, which is quite often the weakest part of our body.
Definitely.
Is our core. So that's pretty interesting, huh?
And because of you, I actually make that analogy now a lot more.
Yeah.
You know,
it's really cool to bring that to people's awarenesses.
Yeah, it really is. And something else I've always mentioned to my clients is that if we have a weakened core, you know, and our torso like that is in a weakened state, you know, we tend to round forward. And what happens when we round forward is, obviously, we have a lot of back and hip pain, very possibly. We develop a protruding belly. The shoulders are rounded forward, and our gaze ends up being down. So our whole posture, everything about our whole energy tends to fall down instead of up. And so I try to help them understand that by building up your core and strengthening, now you can stand up, you feel strong, and guess what? You can see straight ahead out into your future.
Yeah. And you feel better, you feel more uplifted and elevated. This is depressed, sad, anxious, worried.
Very.
Right? So we're all about, you know, raising our vibration.
Yeah.
Okay, so now on the yoga side of your teaching, because you teach a lot of karma, how do you bring in your fitness into the yoga classes, all that expertise?
Well, I don't think that I intentionally bring it in. I think it's just,
well, because you embody it, so it's just there.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, I'm a very physically grounded person, which, by the way, has been great for me at Karma because it's helped develop my more spiritual, softer sides, you know. So I do think that I bring maybe a little more athleticism to the class. I tend to encourage our students, at least in my class, to work a little harder, not be afraid to explore their strength and their, you know, their power. You know, I do it very compassionately and kindly, but I do encourage them to push, and I do offer some perhaps more challenging, you know, poses or exercises that help them build their strength. I mean, honestly, I love nothing more than to see a student do something that they were so convinced that they could never do, and that smile on their face and that light that shines, and I mean, what doesn't get much better than that?
Right. Well, you're empowering them.
Yes.
You know, I often say when we're teaching some of these maybe more difficult poses, it's not really the pose that's going to take us into life, but the empowerment of it and the journey that we learn through it, and when we step into our strength and our light. So are there some core building activities that people could do at home that's really simple or easy to explain that we could fit into our busy lives?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that you and I could just do right here. I mean, you and I could just actually just sit right here and just start contracting our navel toward our spine. I mean, that's just,
right.
You can do it in the car, at the stoplight, you know.
Awakening
kind of
this whole area.
Yeah, I mean, we can even just start floating our arms up and down. As we inhale, you can feel the back extensors working already, right? As you exhale, the navel's hugging back into the spine.
Right.
You know, we can add a little knee lift.
Totally. That's
okay, so here we get into some chair fitness.
Right, right.
You know, I
chair
mean,
yoga.
Yeah, and then there's many that we can do that we'll explore in our little exercise session.
That's great. So, talking about the core strengthening now versus when you and I were working out in the 80s, it's really different because our knowledge is more different, and then as yoga teachers now, we take it more to the emotional, the mental, the deeper, subtler layers of the body. So when I'm teaching yoga at this point, I'm always kind of focusing on the third chakra area, the navel center, and talking about why this needs to be strong, because this is our area of self-love, self-worth, self-esteem. So it brings it to like a whole nother layer of consciousness for people when they understand this is kind of like, isn't this the weakest part of our body a lot of times?
Interesting.
Yeah. So now that you're being in yoga for a long time and you're still teaching in the fitness world, how do you bring into your classes, you know, this kind of awareness as far as the core?
Well, I do talk a lot about, because of my teaching at Karma and your influence actually on me, you know, I've really enjoyed learning a lot about the chakras and particularly the navel center. And I find myself using that language often, like while I'm teaching them and asking them to feel, you know, their abdominal muscles squeezing in or feel their navel center hugging in. You know, I will talk to them about, you know, this is where we are weakest in our body, you know, this is where, so I will talk about self-love a little bit and creativity and inspiration and, you know, all of those kinds of things. And I think that it's just inspiring. It gives them a different, you know, perspective on, you know, what they're doing and, you know, why they're doing it. And maybe it just gives them another reason, you know. So this shift from, you know, what we see on the outside to, you know, going inside and really addressing some much more, you know, sustainable feelings, things that are really important, you know, that really, you know, feed our soul. I mean, it's just, you know, I think that people just really appreciate that.
It does, and it's kind of really nice to educate on this, like I call it the technologies of yoga, of what we're really doing here.
Right.
It's not just our workout, it's not just our exercise, but it's preparing us for our life off the mat. And I think that's something you do so beautifully with your students as well as your private fitness clients, is you're not just teaching them for an hour and a half, you're preparing them for standing in their power, their strength, their courage, their light when they walk out of the room, when you can't maybe be with them. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of my clients will tell me that they hear my mantra and, you know, all the time in their sleep, when they're driving their car, when they're, you know, because I'm always encouraging them to kind of squeeze their navel in so that they can stand up straight and feel their power here, so that they have the strength to open up their chest, open their heart, as you always say, and being able to look out, see straight ahead. Because, you know, if they're weak here, then like we said, they're in a depressed state, their whole energy is down. But when they're stronger in their core, they're just stronger on every level, you know, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and then they can see where they're going.
Hence, living karma yoga, which is what we're teaching people to do off the mat. So you're going to lead us now through a short session with your client, Bree Slavic, and I'd love to see what you're doing, how you're incorporating your fitness and some yoga as well.
Okay.
So let me turn you to that.
Hi everyone, my name's Allison, and this is my client and friend Bree Slavic from Slavic Management, and we are here today to take you through a very invigorating and strengthening core exercise program here. So we're going to incorporate some yoga moves, definitely some yogic style breathing, and some traditional and so not so traditional fitness moves. So grab your mat and let's go. All right? So Bree's going to start in child pose here first because we're just going to lengthen and stretch out her nice long spine here. Good. And she's just going to take a few deep breaths, inhaling through her nose. And you can see how her rib cage starts to expand and swell up with that big inhale. Good. And as she exhales, she just empties her belly completely and just allows herself to soften and relax. Good. So we all know the breath is very powerful. So we're going to really utilize the breath to help enhance all of our exercises. So Bree, inhale and rise up onto your hands and knees. There we go. So her alignment is really important here. You'll notice shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Her sits bones are spreading out. Her shoulders are drawing back. Good. And her neck is nice and long. Remember, a lot of us forget that the neck is definitely connected to the spine, okay? So we want to maintain the integrity of the spine all the way from the tailbone, all the way up to her skull right there. So from here, we can start by strengthening our core and all of the muscles in our trunk here by just literally squeezing the navel center up into the spine, and even by drawing the ribs up and in. Good. So you feel the firmness there in your belly. Beautiful. And now Bree's just going to start to shift forward and back a little bit, keeping your hands exactly where they are. Good. So as she exhales, she hugs the navel in. As she inhales, she shifts forward. Beautiful. So this will start to warm the body up a little bit, start activating the abdominal muscles, the spinal muscles. Good. Everything moving. Beautiful. Good. So from here, Bree's going to bend her elbows and come down into a modified push-up. Good. And then inhale, come up, exhale, the hips go back, leading with her navel center. So continuing on about 5 more times, nice and slow. So the inhale brings her forward, the exhale takes her back. And I know that she's using her navel center. Good. That's where her power center is, all her strength. So Bree's strengthening herself on so many levels this afternoon. Mentally, physically, emotionally, beautiful. Just 2 more times here. Nice. And 1 more time, coming back to table position. Good. And now we're going to inhale. We're going to flex the spine. Inhale, you're going to gaze up. Nice. Exhale, round the spine, emptying out the belly. The gaze comes toward the navel center. And then inhaling now. So we're going to inhale up. And exhale, round and empty. Beautiful. Leading with the heart as you inhale, continuing on here. 3 more times. Exhale, round. Think of bringing the navel and the tailbone together. Good. And exhale, round and empty. 1 more time, creating all kinds of space in the back as well, opening through the shoulder blades. Beautiful. And now coming back to this nice, strong table position. Belly lifting up, supporting the small of the back here, supporting the mid-back as she draws the low ribs in and up. So Bree, I'm going to ask you to float your right leg out behind you. Beautiful. And flexing your foot so you can see that her baby toe is pointed down. This keeps the hips relatively square. Okay, so again, the navel is up. Beautiful. Now we're going to come into full spinal balance here. So Bree's going to float the left arm up and out. And her gaze is just floating out in front. Good. And she's listening to her breath. She's definitely focusing on her breath. I know she does this very well. Good. So inhaling and exhaling. And you may not be able to see this, but Bree's muscles are starting to shake here. And that is actually a great thing. It's absolutely a sign of strength and that Bree's getting stronger and that her muscles are fully engaged, never to be confused with weakness. Beautiful. So we're going to exhale lower and we're going to go on to the left side. So floating the left leg back and the right arm coming out in front. Beautiful. So from here, here's Bree's center. She's got all this energy reaching out through the leg, out through the heel. Forward energy reaching out through the heart. Beautiful. So lifting up just a little bit higher, Bree. That's it. Beautiful. So 1 breath, 1 movement. Let's lower down here. So we're going to start on the other side. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, release. Changing sides. So we can call this a yoga walk. Good. So just taking our body for a walk. Strengthening it, energizing it, waking it up. And by adding the breath here, good. We wake ourselves up so much more. Beautiful. And we use the breath to actually support these movements. So the inhale helps here, floating her up. The exhale helps lower her down. Good. Filling yourself up. Exhale, emptying yourself out. Beautiful. Nice. So let's come right back here. Now we're going to give Bree a stretch. Downward facing dog. So Bree's going to curl her toes under. Inhale, lifting the hips up. Beautiful. Rooting down through the fingertips. Hugging the navel in. You can see how her spine just sort of straightens out here. The chin is out a little bit just so she can breathe. Keeping that airway open is so important. And now on the next inhale, we're going to kind of step it up a notch here that we're warmed up. Bree's going to inhale and she's going to float right onto plank pose, coming onto the tippy toes, also known as high push-up. Bree does these push-ups really great. So let's just show them how you do just like maybe 2 full plank push-ups, Bree. So lowering down halfway. Inhale, using the power from the navel center to come up. Lowering down. And inhale, lifting up. That's good. We're going to hold it right there. Beautiful. So just holding here perhaps for 30 seconds is very challenging, and you'll find that you can get very strong from just holding this. If it's too much, again, you come back down onto the knees. Good. But you're coming back up on those knees. So to take this up to the next level, we're going to pop the right toes off the floor just a few inches. Ooh, and I know how this feels. Her glutes are really engaged now. Her quadricep is just really squeezing into the femur bone to help stabilize her. She's reaching back, and her navel center is working big time, right? Okay, so we're going to try that on the left side, popping up just, so keep reaching the heart forward. You'll notice as you reach the heart forward that the area between the shoulder blades softens. So Bree's a little more relaxed here. Okay, Bree, come all the way down onto your belly now. Good. We're going to give her just a little bit of a rest here. She deserves it. And now crossing your forearms out in front of you and resting the forehead down. So you'll see this kind of exercise, this posture in a yoga class all of the time. It's a wonderful place to be and rest and relax and restore. So continuing on here, maintaining the upper body just as it is. Bree's going to contract her glute and her hamstring and float this leg up off the mat, excuse me. Beautiful. Nice. And then lower down, and we'll do the same thing on this side. So basically, if we hold for 5 breaths, or 5 counts, even long counts, good. Strengthening the spinal muscles that line the spinal column. Inhale, changing sides. Beautiful. One more time, left leg. Nice. And release. Coming back to the right leg now this time. Good. Lifting it up. So now Bree's going to lift her gaze up, lifting her heart up a little bit. The right arm is going to stay down. The left arm is going to reach out. That's it. So now we're involving even more of the back here, more of the spine. Good. So as we contract these muscles that support and line and stabilize the spine, it flexes Bree's spine this way. Beautiful. So let's lower down, and we'll try that on the other side. Nice. So breathing deeply here. Inhale. Exhale. So if we took the breath away from this movement completely, Bree probably wouldn't be able to stay here this long, because the breath, remember, keeps feeding her fresh oxygen, and she needs that in order to support her practice and any exercise that she does. Beautiful. Okay, come on down and release. Nice. And now we're going to take this a little further. So we're going to take both arms out onto the floor. So her baby fingers are going to rest on the floor, palms facing one another. Beautiful. The neck is nice and long. The gaze is down. Perfect. And so just pressing down into the floor here like this, Bree can just lift herself up a little bit higher. Again, flexing the spine. Beautiful. Nice. Remember, a flexible spine is a very healthy spine. Good. So we only have one, so we got to take good care of it. So coming back to child pose, Bree. Beautiful. Nice. Giving her a nice little stretch here. Perfect. Okay, so now Bree's going to come up, and we're going to flip you over onto your back, and we're going to show you some exercises that we can do on the back. Beautiful. So everybody's always very happy when they get to come down onto their back. Okay, so we're planting the feet. Good. Hips width apart with those legs. So rooting down through the 4 corners of the feet, which is very important, because as we press the big toes down in the center of the foot here, then we're able to engage the inner thigh muscles, okay, also known as the adductors. So Bree's going to squeeze in here. She's going to inhale and float the hips in her midsection right up off the mat. Good. And just holding here and relax. You know, you don't even have to put too much effort into this. Like, you don't have to sit there and really squeeze and grip on your glute muscles. Just the action of being up here in this posture is actually going to begin to strengthen the glutes and the hamstrings and the low back and the mid back. Beautiful. Good. So we're going to take this up a little bit too. So we're going to put a little more into the left leg here, and you're going to adjust your left foot in and probably a little closer and float the right leg up to the sky. So reaching up through the toes here. That's it. Beautiful. So now really rooting down through this heel even more so that you can lift up, engage the glute even more. Beautiful. Feeling even more in the back, right? Good. Belly keeps drawing in toward the spine. So now Bree's going to lower the right leg to her left. We'll do this about 5 times. So inhale, good. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. And we want to stop right here. Good. You know, the hip flexors, which are right up about this part of the leg, are very strong. They kind of act like bullies. And if we bring the leg in too close, then they take over, okay? So we really want to work the glute and the abs here. Beautiful. So hold the next one up, Bree. Using that breath now, right? Give you more energy. A little tiny lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Lower down, and then we'll do it on the other side. But we got to get ready to move on here. So hug your knees into your chest. Good. And just kind of circle yourself around. This is great for the hips. Beautiful. It's very important to bring the circulation and range of motion and movement into the hips here. Great. Take your hands behind your head, Bree. Good. Lower your feet to the floor. And as you come up, we just want to give a little quick work here to the obliques. Come up and cross over both. That's it. And now add the opposite knee lift. Nice. Beautiful. Up and down. Inhale as she goes back. Exhale as she lifts. The longer the exhale is, the more muscle she will affect and contract. That's it. Beautiful. So the stronger the muscle gets. Perfect. Okay. So hug those knees in. Take a nice big breath. Beautiful. So that's it for our practice, but know that there are so many more exercises that we can do, so please feel free to join me and all the other wonderful teachers at Karma Yoga. Okay, thank you and have a great day, and thank you, Bree.
I'd like to close with an inspiration of the day to get you on your way. Gratitude is the open door to abundance. And I'd also like to thank my guests, Allison Stewart-Kaplan and Bree Slavic. If you like what you see here, learn more with us at www.karma-yoga.net. Namaste.